Hey guys, welcome back. Jacob Lucing here. This is part of our series, Building a Transplant Coaching SaaS Product in Public. The purpose of this series is for me to go over Q&A that the community comes back to us with every couple of weeks. We'll talk about how we're doing as a company, what our results were, what our performance was since the last video. We'll go over the paid ads section of the business. We'll go over the social media side because we create a lot of short form content. We'll talk about what we physically built onto the platform and then what we're building next. So this is great because it bumps us up in the feed a little bit and helps us hone in on what really drives the most value for you guys, and it helps keep me honest. So let's go ahead and dive in with the Q&A. Now, we recycle sort of the questions we get throughout the week, either on TikTok or from actual consults we take with potential clients. And a pretty common one we got this week that I want to share with you guys because it highlighted such a massive pain point we see in customers and patients who are not just transplant coach, not just organ donation or cadaver donation, but holistically, and that is testing. Now, we had a gentleman we took care of this past week. Super excited about him. We're going to take him from Massachusetts, where he's looking at a 5 to 7 year wait, and we're going to send him to a couple different hospitals, actually, where he's going to wait around a year, maybe even less because he's already accrued 6 months of dialysis. And we get through the application. We're 99% of the way there. And I go, oh, wait a minute. When's your birth date? And he ends up just being on that cutoff of 45 years old. And if you're 45 years or older, as a male, you're required to have a colonoscopy as part of your routine cancer screening, which everyone should get at that age, but specifically for kidney transplantation. And so it's like, oh, okay, well, you got to get that done, right? We have mechanisms to kind of work around that to still push his application forward. But the reality is, I think his story is pretty common. We've seen it a ton. I've experienced it myself. And he goes, well, I called my PCP like you told me to, and they're telling me I need to come back in a month. My next available appointment with the primary doctor is a month from now, booking out, and then from there, they can schedule me for a colonoscopy a month, a week, 3 months, who knows? So now we're looking at potentially delaying an application for multi-listing a month to 2 to 3 months before he could even potentially be submitted. And even though this is outside of the scope of, what we normally do, I'm like, actually, no, hold on. We can't accept that. That's not acceptable for you. We need to do better. Let's figure this out together. So I pull up ZocDoc and I'm like, colonoscopy near me in this particular town that he lived in. And we got a PCP available within the next day. It might not be his PCP, but I'm like, listen, here's what I do. I would call this PCP's office, I'd get in that appointment, and I would call your primary, and I would have them fax over all the info, even if you have to redo the basic medical stuff, the clipboards. Do whatever it is you have to do in order to get that visit, and then push for the fastest possible colonoscopy. Pull up ZocDoc when you're in there with your primary and be like, well, I got this guy who's available. Can you have your office fax over your referral today? Like, that's what it takes, because the healthcare system is slow, it's bureaucratic, it's designed in such a way that makes it very hard to move quickly, especially when you talk about insurance pre-authorizations and all this other stuff. So the takeaway here, and the FAQ is, how do I make sure my labs and my tests don't slow me down for multi-listing? And the answer to that question is, you have to be your own best advocate. And you have to sort of push back. And you have to say, okay, if I need this test, how can I get this done tomorrow? If I had no choice, if my life depended on it, which ironically in this case it sort of does, what would I do to push? Well, I'd push back a little, on the staffing for their next available appointment, and then I'd pull up ZocDoc or a similar platform and I'd start calling around. I'd make sure that I'd filter by my insurance, make sure I'm not paying out of pocket. And I thought that story resonated pretty well because I've seen it dozens of times, and I think a lot of people who see our content might have that issue too. So let's talk a little bit about the business. Let's talk about our subscribers over the last week, our content. We'll start with the organic, the social media side, and then we'll talk about the paid ad side. All right, so here we have beacons. This is simply how we track our social media stuff. And if we go to analytics, this should auto-populate to the last week or so. 64 videos last week. We have a new flavor that we introduced, and that is reporting trends. So our content centers around a couple of key themes. One is multi-listing specifically, and another is an emotional sort of appeal of myth busting about the true impact of dialysis. And they all have a call to action of, hey, if the map that tells you where the wait times are the shortest is of value, then comment and we'll send it to you. And then we send folks to our homepage. We've introduced a new video style this week, which I'm super excited for. And that's where I do 1-minute shorts referencing actual news stories, reviewing different kinds of news stories. Some are investigative, a bit more stat-based. Some are emotional, of really cool stories where, you know, a prom date from 30 years ago ends up donating her kidney to this guy, even though they're not married. Just really cool stories. We want to kind of make it more well-rounded. So we released that this week. Those are coming out. Super stoked for that. And in terms of followers on TikTok, we're at 750. And last week, in the last 7 days, around 10,000 views, and around 100 or so, 150 followers, new followers this past week. So we're in it for the long game. But I will also say, in the last couple of weeks, we've gotten about 8 consults from social media. People who saw the content, came to Transplant Coach, they booked the call, and we've gotten about 8 of them, which is really cool. Now, none of them have bought yet, but that's okay. They're still trying to figure out how the lead engine works. We have one gentleman who came in through social media, and we're going to get him listed next week. His story is pretty cool. Maybe he'll let me share it at some point. But so that's working. And then let's go over to the ad side of things. Now, in the last video, I talked a little bit about what these campaigns are, so I won't go over that again, but it's basically just basic search campaigns. Kidney transplant near me. How do I get the fastest kidney transplant? Keywords you type into Google. Now, we did some consolidation. Instead of having our old campaign from a year ago plus the new stuff, we just brought it all into one view. And in the last 7 days, we've gotten 10 people who have booked calls for an average cost of $60 a call. Now, Google, you can see it still says bid strategy learning. I'm a little impatient sometimes, but Google is still in its learning period. It's going to take longer than we thought. So we'll be going through this for another 30 to 60 days, where this number on a 7-day rolling basis will get up closer to 20 to 25 when we're at full speed in about 30 to 60 days. Google is still trying to figure out how to effectively allocate our ad budget, which is painful to watch, but we're getting there. And of these 10 people who have booked calls, none of them have bought in the last 7 days. We did, however, have one conversion, and I'll talk a little bit about our trial period overall, the first 30 days, so to speak. And so of these 10, we had about 70% show rate, which is not uncommon for paid traffic. It's usually slightly lower quality traffic, but that's okay. And the folks who have bought have been healthcare referrals. My doctor told me to check you out, my social worker, my nurse, or my family friends. Family friend of mine used you guys. I also have kidney failure, found you. So in the long run, paid ads here and social media is where we want those referrals to come from, but they come from those 3 sources. Now, the 16th of October is when we turned ads on, and I kind of consider October 16th or November 16th to be like the real, a very meaty 30 days. We started the series, we started our social media, we started paid ads, and to date, we're about, today's the 12th, so we're about 26 days of the way through. We have we've had about 20 consults or so booked in that 20-day time period, and we've had 2 people purchase. And then some middle 30%, 40% people who may purchase later on. Our goal for the 4-week period was to have 4 conversions at $3,000 a conversion. That puts us around 12,000 to 15 in revenue collected, and we got about halfway there. Now, there's still 4 days left, so we'll see. But 2 to 3 conversions is where we're going to end our period. And I think that's for a couple different reasons, instead of just stating good or bad. But I think it's on a continuum of where our expectations were versus where we ended up. And I've personally taken on the project of learning Google Ads from the inside out. A year ago, we had a mature set of Google Ads that had been running for 6 months plus. And when you've been running Google Ads for 3 to 6 months, Google it really zeroes in on your audience, on your ad copy, and serving as best as possible. And I was under the impression, I was hoping that by turning them back on after being off for so long on the 16th of October, we'd be able to just jump right back in. Not the case. It turns out Google, if you leave your campaigns inactive for longer than around 60 days, it decays the data and they don't use it anymore. So they have to start from scratch. Now, if that had not been the case, if we could have thrown $1,000 or $2,000 in ad budget on day one, yeah, maybe it'd be different if this number said 50, which is what it will say in 30 to 60 days. But it didn't, and that's okay, because in exchange, it forced us to slow down a little bit and implement some of the stuff I've been talking about, like a VSL video and collecting testimonials. And I've gotten to learn Google Ads from scratch, in which I'm still very new, but we'll get there. All right, so last segment here is the building. What have we done to the site since the last video, and what are we working on next? So major focus since the last video was how can we make our homepage, where everyone lands, as simple and clean as possible. We used to have a ton of content and text of, oh, we've done this we've helped 1,000 people, multi-list sooner, XYZ. But the reality is a lot of people who find us still don't know what multi-listing is. It's not like if we were selling, everyone knows what a plumber does conceptually. Everyone knows what an electrician does. Everyone knows what a shoe, is for. But our product is multi-listing. The problem is there's a big education gap between I need a kidney transplants fast, how to get a faster transplant, right? Those are sort of the search words that bring people here. There's a big gap between that and multi-listing, this amorphous topic that most people aren't even aware of. So we had to take a step back and be like, what are people actually looking for? What do they actually want to know? Because I don't think they care so much about multi-listing as a topic, even though I preach it, from the rooftops every day, because I think it's so underutilized. And all it means is listing at more than one hospital. Listing at more than one hospital because the wait time is lower at other hospitals. That's all it is. But due to this education gap, we wanted to reframe it. It's like, okay, what are we really offering? Simply put, do you need a kidney? Okay, that's what we capture here. If yes, you're in the right place. Okay, cool. Well, for 100 people plus, just like you, they've gotten their kidney 5 years sooner. They did that by using hospitals that average 6 to 24 months to the surgery date. We'll see how this resonates. This is a long-term game of split testing what works and trying different ad copies. But we want it to be simple, third-grade reading level, and easy to understand. Attention spans are so small to begin with in today's day and age, and these people are inundated with all kinds of other info and content, and they're just feeling awful. They're in end-stage renal failure most of the time. So here's the value proposition is what we modified. And then we put right up in front and center, what are other people saying? And this is one of our favorite testimonial videos, where you can just watch someone else say, here's how I found Jacob in Transplant Coach. Here was my problem. Here's what happened. Great. Next section is the same lead magnet we've had forever, which is the map. Anyone can use it. Anyone can find which hospital to go to. Okay. Now, the next update, the next push for us is to reevaluate what this section is for. What are we trying to say here? We have a video sales letter now that goes for 15 minutes that people watch. I make them watch it, otherwise I won't chat with them on the console. We want to redo this section to be, what are the 3 to 5 absolute meatiest FAQs, the most helpful and meaningful FAQs? And what is it? What is Transplant Coach? Like, you understand the value proposition, like, okay, so I can get a kidney faster. Okay, so other people have gotten kidneys faster from this thing. Okay, here's like the free tool that I was promised. Here's the map. Oh, cool. Oh, wow, the wait times do change based on where you go. Okay, I live here where it's 4 years, and here it's only 1. Okay. But like, then what is it? Like, what is it that we're offering before I book a call? Now, some people may just book the call, but like, why would I book a call? Like, what is it? And that's what we want to do in this section here. And then we want to hit those objections. Those, well, how do I even know if my insurance is going to cover? How do I know XYZ? We want to hit those up front here, and then we want to hit them again in the video sales letter before we speak to them. So that's our next big thing. That's what we're working on for the next series, next video. And we have our About Us, which is just like, okay, I get it, I understand it, but I need more information. Because like we talked about in the last video, people who could ever purchase your thing are not binary yes/no people. They're a continuum of how much information do they need to make a purchase. And the more people we can convert into being high information, as in they know everything they could need to know in a way that makes sense, the more of those people who will buy. So here's a little bit more about us, and then we just reinforce with more testimonials. Okay. As a side note, I do want to take a look at the pricing also and make that a bit more succinct, but we'll save that for another piece. As always, guys, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for staying with us. Oh, and I forgot to mention, we also redid our logo to be a bit more modern, a bit more clean, as well as our merch. Big fan of that. I don't know that anyone cares or will notice, but I think it looks a lot better. So thank you, guys. Stay tuned, and we'll talk to you soon.